Hey, it's Scott Petrick with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. The Browns started 2021 with a win over Pittsburgh that allowed them to snap a 17-year playoff drought. 2021 ends today with the Browns headed to Pittsburgh for a Monday night game necessary to keep their playoff hopes alive if the Browns get help Sunday. Here to discuss what could be an eventful next 10 days is Dave Chudowski of Go, the WKYC Morning News. How are you, Chud?
Scott, it's a new year. Happy New Year to you. New Year's Eve, final day of the year when we're recording this. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Same to you. I looked at my calendar yesterday. I can't believe tomorrow's December 31st. I don't know where it went, Chud.
And the funny thing is, what'd you say? Interesting 10 days. You know, it's interesting. 2021, you will look back and say, hey, it was a disappointing year for the Browns, really, with the expectations. But here's what's funny. 2022 could be unbelievable if everything goes their way.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I know. It's weird. You know, the NFL schedule. I mean, now it's going to be a week later into January because of, the 17th game in the 18th week. But, there were times where I'm pretty sure the season would end right at the end of December, right? And then sometimes it would carry over right at the beginning of January. But I was thinking about that, and it was January 3rd last year when the Browns hosted Pittsburgh and needed the win to get into the playoffs. And then January 10th, they won the Wildcat game in Pittsburgh. And then obviously the 17th is when they lost in Kansas City. So it was 2021 got off to such a great start. And then it ends for the Browns in 2021. Now, obviously their hopes aren't dashed, but these last two-point losses have really been, I don't want to say backbreakers because they haven't killed the season, but really change the outlook, right? All they had to do was win one of those two games, and they would control their destiny to win the AFC North. And now, not only do they need to beat Pittsburgh on Monday night and then Cincinnati at home the following Sunday, they need help, right? They need Cincinnati to lose to the Chiefs on Sunday, and they need Baltimore to lose one of its final two, and then they could still win the AFC North. So hope is not lost, but they made it awfully hard on themselves.
Yeah, they really did. But it is incredible. I was thinking, the Browns have not done what they were supposed to do necessarily. No, not necessarily. They didn't do what they were supposed to do to put themselves in this position. It's really the division kind of came back to them in a way. Not came back to them because last year the Browns were so good, right? But I guess what I'm saying is there's not that elite team this year. Everyone's just so clustered together. And surprisingly, the Bengals look like the best of the bunch right now.
Yeah, I think that's true. We've seen a lot of up and down inside the division this year, and Joe Bitonio talked about that the other day. There's no 13-win team. There's no 6-win team or 4-win team like there has been in the past. Either the Browns or the Bengals. Baltimore overcame injuries for as long as it could, and then the injuries have caught up to them the last month, and Lamar Jackson being out after the tackle by Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah sent him to the sideline. He hasn't been back, and that's really affected Baltimore. Pittsburgh has been up and down, just can't do anything on offense, but finds a way to win enough games to not be out of the playoff picture. And then, Cincinnati, when Cincinnati plays well, it looks like the best team in the division. And we saw that against Baltimore a week ago, and actually against Baltimore early in the season in Baltimore, when the Bengals put up a bunch of points. Joe Burrow had two huge games, but I will say the Ravens are decimated in the secondary, so that helps, and it helped Joe Burrow a week ago. And the Bengals have been up and down like everybody else. Just when you think, okay, the Bengals are the class of the division, they go and lay an egg. So I think that does give some hope to Browns fans wondering about Kansas City going into Cincinnati this weekend. Not only is Kansas City, I think they're 5-point favorite. We've seen Cincinnati go up and down. So there's no guarantee that the Bengals will be just as good this week. So yeah, you're exactly right about the division, but not to be too negative here, but the fact that nobody's got more than 9 wins with 2 games left, it shows you that this is a golden opportunity for the Browns. If they had lived up to their potential and won some of these close games, right? They've lost 6 games by 6 points or fewer. If they win 2 of those, they sit atop the division. and the discussion is completely different.
And in this last game, two things we've talked so much about were highlighted in this game. You know, you had just talked about, you know, one thing here or there that cost them so many games this year. And you saw that in this game, but you also saw another chance to win a game late. And what is Baker now? 0-5 and on last minute drives, 4 picks. Whether you want to say it's his fault for all of them, the bottom line is, you know, it's the same old song and dance right now with him. Whether it's his fault or not, or, you know, however we get here, the bottom line is we get here.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And it's interesting because we've talked about this a million times, Chud, but I think it's worth saying again. You can pinpoint specific plays and say, okay, that's not Baker's fault, right? The interception to end the Packers game, I don't think it's Baker's fault. I think the official blew the call. There should have been pass interference. The guy, Rasul Douglas, definitely had a hold of Donovan Peoples-Jones, affected his route, allowed him to intercept it. I don't blame Baker there. The throw was fine. I thought the decision was fine. Maybe Peoples-Jones could have run a tougher route, but whatever. But I don't blame Baker for that. But I blame Baker for the missed first down throw to Njoku that changes the play call after that, and maybe the Browns run it and, you know, score at the last second to beat the Packers. You know, you look at the Pittsburgh game where Jarvis Landry had a bad fourth quarter. Okay, take that one off Baker's plate. It's still 0 for 4. And there's just too much body of work to not put that responsibility on Baker. And I thought it was interesting. We talked to Baker yesterday, and we asked him about Ben Roethlisberger, right? It looks like it's going to be Big Ben's last game in Pittsburgh on Monday night. And Baker just kind of brought up how Ben always seems to make plays in the fourth quarter and gets it done. And he goes, some guys just do that. And I don't think Baker said it like with a reference to himself not doing it. I just think he was stating fact that Ben's been great in the fourth quarter. I think Ben's third all time in NFL history in fourth quarter comebacks and fourth quarter winning drives. And it's like 40 comebacks and 52 winning drives, which is staggering. So obviously the Baker's right that that's what Ben's done throughout his career, but it's such an easy contrast with Baker, and some guys just get it done. Now, this doesn't mean Baker will never get it done. It doesn't mean he hasn't done it in the past, you know, a handful of times. But this season he hasn't, and you start to wonder if he's the guy, and if he can't do it in the fourth quarter, then he can't be your guy, right?
Yeah, and you're not going to want to spend a lot of money on a guy like that. So, you know, it's not like he can't win games in the NFL, but he's not the elite guy that we have pinpointed so many times. I gotta, you know, talk more about what you just talked about. A lot of people say, hey, I mean, if he would have just made that play to Njoku, then, you know, everything would have worked out. Well, isn't that part of it? I mean, like I've heard that argument a few times this week, is that, well, if they just would have made that play, then no one would be saying, oh, well, you should have run Chubb. My point there is they were, you know, getting it done on the ground. Why not take the road, that path that's easier? So if you're wanting to get to point A to B, aren't you going to take the path that's easier to get to B from A? And in my mind, it's a lot easier. And I know the time was running down. I get that. But part of the argument I have here, and you know what, it may have even been, I watched you on Sports Tonight with Camino, and I think you guys talked about it. So maybe that's what triggered it. I wanted to bring up with you. So do you still feel that way, that you kind of mentioned that, hey, if they just would have made that play? Well, but the problem is, that's the problem, Scott, is so many times they just don't make that play. If you want to succeed, you got to make that play. And that's the problem. I guess my point is, it's easy to say, well, I'm okay with it because you just needed to make the play. But more often than not, we're not making that play. Does that make sense? I'm confusing everyone.
No, I got you. And I understand your point. And you're not alone on this point. I had some reader email me the other day. I wrote a column about it early in the week saying I was fine with Stefanski's play calling. I said he wasn't perfect. I had issues with the end of the first half. Baker's third interception coming out of the 2-minute warning, I thought that was a perfect time to run the ball. And instead they roll him left and he throws the bad interception. I disagreed with that, but I did not disagree with those passes at the end, right? People objected to those final 3 passes. I did not have a problem with that. And I'm going to explain why, but to get to your point first, I think you're saying, well, you can't trust your quarterback, so go with the guys you can trust, which is Nick Chubb in the running game. And I get that philosophy. I also think it's impossible or nearly impossible as a play caller to not be able to trust your quarterback, right? You have to be able to throw the ball. You just do in this league. And I know, you can point to the Patriots running it 3 times against Buffalo. That's an aberration, right? This league, you need to throw it at certain times. And I do think that Kevin Stefanski does not have full trust in Baker. I think that's obvious, and it's been obvious multiple times this season. So he tries to give him the easiest throws possible, right? If say they run Chubb and he gains 3 yards and 3 yards, you burn both your timeouts. Now it's 3rd and 4, right? You burn 2 of your 3 timeouts. So now it's 3rd and 4, and you need to throw it, and you're going to have to throw it a bunch. Well, that doesn't suit Baker well. And all of a sudden, all the pressure's on Baker. So what you do is on 1st and 10 with 3 timeouts left, the Packers have to respect the run. So you run a play action, and you have David Njoku running wide open. Stefanski made life easier on Baker, and Baker was unable to deliver. So therefore, I have a hard time blaming Stefanski for that part. My other point is Stefanski he felt the Browns needed to score a touchdown or at least get awfully close for a field goal because he didn't trust the kicker, Chris Nagar, who made his NFL debut and missed the first extra point and was bad in pregame. I talked to some reporters that were watching him in pregame, said it was awful. And the Browns must agree because they cut him from the practice squad this week. So that's your kicker to win the game in Green Bay. Forget that. I'm trying to score a touchdown. So in order to go the final 50 yards in the final minute, you're not going I just don't think it's practical to say you're going to run it 6 times to do that. I think what's practical is you have to get 1 or 2 chunk plays through the air and do that on 1st down. The play call worked. The quarterback didn't. Then at 2nd down, they've been running great screens all day. And the linebacker for Green Bay makes a good play. Dearness Johnson is going to pick up yards on that screen. The linebacker makes a good play. And then on 3rd and 10, you got to throw it. So, again, I think it's so easy to criticize the play caller. And I know the run game was averaging 8.8 a carry. I get that. I also know that the 3 times they ran it before on that series were 4, 10, and 4. So if you're running it for 4 yards and then you have to take a timeout and you run it for 4 yards again, all of a sudden you're at the 42. You've wasted 2 timeouts. There's 50 seconds left, and you still got to go, 30 yards for a chip shot field goal. And the dynamic changes. So I understand the frustration. I understand the numbers in Nick Chubb in your backfield. But I think the throw on 1st down was the right call. And the last point on that, I know I'm getting long-winded. The last point on that is the same people that argued, and Chud, you might have been one of them, that they should have thrown the ball on 3rd and 3 the week before against the Raiders with their 3rd-string quarterback, now say you have to hand the ball off. That seems a little contradictory to me.
Yeah, let's go back. Let's revisit that one again. 3rd and 3. That was the
Raiders game, right? They needed a 1st down to end it. And they ran it, and everybody said they should have thrown it, even though Nick Mullins is your quarterback, right? But that was
no,
remember that?
No,
remember that discussion?
I do remember. No, I do, but I actually agreed with
okay.
I was fine with them running it. Okay. Our discussion was we were debating should have they run it to the middle or to the left, not the right.
Right. But there were plenty of people that argued that they should have just thrown the ball there. Right.
Oh, sure. No doubt. And then the week before, didn't it happen? The same thing where they passed the ball and we thought they should have run. This has happened multiple times.
A ton of times.
You're I got to tell you, you make a great argument and you kind of, you make some quality points there and it's tough to argue. But at the end of the day, as I was listening to you make your case, it all comes back to the bottom line. Baker doesn't get game-winning drives accomplished at the end of the game. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and that's a tough way to coach, and it's a tough way to win games, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I got to tell you, I hate blaming refs, but that was awful. That was awful at the end of the game there. The no call. Yeah. It's incredible to me that and who knows if they win the game, even if it does get called, but it's just that was brutal.
It was, and they missed on Baker's first interception. The guy's hugging Peoples-Jones 15 yards downfield, and they missed that. So, I didn't think it was officiated well, but I'm with you. I don't blame that for the loss. Say they call it on the last play. So the Browns have the ball at the 40. That doesn't guarantee success. Now, you'd like to see what the Browns could do from there. That doesn't mean he shouldn't have called the penalty. But it's not as simple as if he makes a call, the Browns win the game.
So looking at where they're at now, take us through. Well, before we get to that, the death threats. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Baker, we can talk about that real quick.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah, Baker's wife Emily put on her Instagram story, which is the thing that it deletes itself after 24 hours. She had a message about people should use social media for positive, and she doesn't understand the death threats to Baker, right? Like, it was kind of vague, or it was a vague reference. She didn't get specific. And so I didn't see exactly what you're referring to. I went on one of Baker's Instagram posts and looked through a bunch of comments and didn't see, I saw some negative ones, but I didn't see anything, like death threat wise. And so Baker got asked about it yesterday, and he downplayed it. He said, it's not serious. We've dealt with this kind of stuff before. He called them keyboard warriors, I think was his term. So he just thinks it's, jerks on social media, going a step too far. He didn't seem concerned. He said he hadn't contacted the Browns security, right? So it's not like it was taken to a next level. There were no security wasn't brought in. Police weren't contacted. So it's a bit, I don't want to call it a non-story. It's a bit of a, I guess Emily made it a story by putting it on social media. Then he had to ask Baker about it. And then he talked about how he just feels bad for Emily and his loved ones because they have to deal with this type of over-the-line criticism, right? And to me, obviously you hope they're not legitimate, right? And you never know. There's a bunch of crazy people out there. But you hope it's not legitimate. You hope Baker's right that it's just, people mad at Baker on Twitter or on social media. The other part of it is just the, cesspool that social media can be, right? And the stuff that pretty much everybody has to deal with, but especially if you're a high profile person, right? Whether it's an athlete, media member, it doesn't matter. You take a lot of crap on social media, which, it's not a great reflection on our society.
Real quick, moving on from one last thing on the game. Do you think Garrett stepping on Rodgers' foot, did that affect Rodgers in the second half, or did they just take the pedal off the gas? What happened there? Because at halftime, I didn't think the Browns had a shot or a prayer. As a matter of fact, I was going in against Rodgers in fantasy, and I thought he was going to drop a 46 on me or something. He had like 24 fantasy points in the first half and ended up with like 25. It was incredible. What happened?
I think that did affect him because he said after the game that he had felt as good as he had, and then he got stepped on, whether it's by Miles or his own guy. It might have been more than once, actually. So I think it affected his mobility, but I also think the Browns defense played better in the second half, and the Browns quit turning it over for a while. All three Packers touchdowns in the first half came off interceptions, right? So that usually means good field position. Which helps a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So when the defense gave up the early field goal to start the third quarter and then just shut it down. And I think a lot of that was just the defense playing better. They benefited from a Devontae Adams drop that gave the Browns the ball with that last drive that they were unable to capitalize on. But You don't see that very often. But I think it was, I mean, I'm not saying the foot wasn't a factor, but I think the bigger factor was the defense just played better.
Yeah, good analogy. Hey, also John Johnson on Twitter.
Yeah.
You want to address that a little bit? That was interesting. Tweeting, just run the ball. Back to our conversation we just had.
Yeah, I mean that was early, right? It was in the first half. I don't know if it was right after a Baker interception when he did it, but he said, "Run the damn ball" in all caps. It's just a bad look, And in Joe Batoni's like, well, he's trying to be a fan. He's being a fan, and just trying to like downplay it and move on. Stefanski wouldn't really address it. Said, any conversations you have is internal. But it's a terrible look, and it's a knock on the coach. It's a knock on Baker, right? And you've seen, starting with, I want to start it with the Odell situation, right? The Odell departure at midseason when John Johnson III was one of the guys saying, "Hey, we'd love to have Odell. We hope this works out with Odell." He was vocal about that, and he wasn't alone. You wonder how the locker room feels when the defense is playing better and giving your offense chances to win, and Baker's not capitalizing, right? And we saw the 4 picks that they got of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. The Browns only scored 3 points off those interceptions, and they lose a close game, right? That's a game that they probably should have won, given those turnovers and takeaways. So I think it's an honest moment from JJ3, and it's more, I mean, it's a criticism of Stefanski, but I think there's also a criticism of Baker in there, is that we don't trust our quarterback, and you wonder if that situation is tenable long term, right? What's Baker going to have to do to win back some of the guys in the locker room? That's how it feels, right? Nobody's told me that he doesn't have everybody's confidence anymore, but you wonder about that, right? You wonder about the divide with the Odell Baker situation. And then when guys tweet something like that, that's certainly not it's certainly not a shot in the arm for the quarterback.
Certainly, no doubt. Bring us up to speed on COVID and injuries.
Yeah, it's actually, the situation's pretty good. It's been as good as it has been in a few weeks now. The only guys left on the COVID list are backups. I think it's linebackers Elijah Lee and Tony Fields the second, backup tackle Alex Taylor, and then a couple practice squad safeties. Injury-wise, Myles Garrett practiced on Thursday, which was a good sign because he didn't practice at all before the Packers game. That was a short week, and this is a longer week, but it's a good sign. Now, I don't expect his groin. He was limited. I don't expect his groin to be 100%, but if he's, let's say he was 75 against Green Bay, if he gets to 85, can you get the Big Ben at 85, right? So I think that's a good sign. Kareem Hunt, John Johnson III, and Troy Hill are the 3 guys to keep an eye on. None of them practice Thursday. We'll see if they practice Friday or Saturday. Stefanski didn't rule out anybody. Sounded kind of hopeful about Kareem Hunt. And obviously that would be a big boost, right? I mean, he's missed so much time. He missed the 5 games with the calf, now the last 2 with the ankle /COVID. If you get Kareem Hunt back and he's able to just give you a little spark on Monday night, that could be the difference against the Steelers, or against the Bengals in the finale. I think he's that important. Not that Ernest Johnson hasn't been great in his role, but Kareem Hunt definitely adds something to this offense. So he's a guy to watch. And then, Johnson III is big at safety, but they have Grant Delpit and Ronnie Harrison Jr. back. And then Troy Hill, is important at nickel, but they're getting Greg Newsome back, who's been out since he had the concussion December 10th. And then he had COVID too. So they're as healthy probably as they could hope to be at this point.
So break it down for us here. The Browns still have a shot. I've heard some people say it's pretty reasonable. That they can certainly make it happen. But my argument to that is Scott Petrak, tell me why I should believe the Browns can win the last 2 games. I mean, forget the other scenarios, because the other scenarios actually, I mean, the Chiefs beating the Bengals, that's not far-fetched. The other scenarios don't seem that crazy. What's crazy to me is tell me why I should believe the Browns can win 2 straight games.
Yeah, it's interesting, Chud. Somebody asked me that earlier in the week. Like, which do I think is either least likely or most likely to happen? Out of the, it was all about this week. Browns beat the Steelers, Ravens lose to Rams, Bengals lose to Chiefs, and it feels all pretty similar to me. And if you look at the point spreads, they're all pretty similar, 3.5 to 5. But your point's well taken, and it's hard for me to argue. The Browns haven't won 2 in a row since weeks 2, 3, and 4, right? So all of a sudden, okay, they're going to automatically win the last 2, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. And if you're asking for reasons why it can happen, I would say number one is Pittsburgh just not that good. If you're a Browns fan, I would be concerned about the emotion and atmosphere of Monday night. Big Ben's, all signs point to Big Ben's final home game at Heinz Field. He said that. He said he wouldn't go definite, but he said all signs point to, and that's as close as you're going to get, right? So it's, so can Big Ben pull out one more, magic act, one more masterpiece? Yeah, I don't think that's crazy. His numbers are pretty good this year. So I'd be concerned about that. But having said that, Pittsburgh's not a dynamic offense. Hasn't been all year. Their defense is at the bottom of the league against the run. It's missing pieces like it has for a while. It's just not the same. So that's the reason I think they can beat Pittsburgh. And then Cincinnati would be harder. Although, you can just point to the Browns winning down there in early November. They waxed Cincinnati, and they've had pretty good luck against Cincinnati in the past couple of years. So there's certainly a way that they can do it. And if you get the home crowd and a winner-take-all game on that final Sunday of the season, would it be impossible for the Browns to beat Cincinnati? No. So, I can certainly see a scenario, Chud, but you're right to have skepticism, just given how inconsistent the Browns have been and their inability to pull out close games. And I don't think there's a lot of reason to think these last 2 games wouldn't be close. If the Browns are going to, in fact, win them both.
So the Chiefs are, let's see, 5.
Yep.
-5, Rams -4, but the Ravens and Bengals are both at home.
Correct. Yep.
So that's the advantage they have there. So the Browns have the advantage of playing, I'd rather play the Steelers than the Rams or Chiefs. But those 2 teams are at home. But the Ravens are just, their defense is not looking good, and they got issues at quarterback with the health, and they've lost a lot of close games. So it'll be interesting to see, no question.
Their secondary is ravaged. And it's Matt Stafford and OBJ, so you hope OBJ does the Browns a solid. And if the Ravens won, the Browns could still get in if the Ravens lost the next week at home to Pittsburgh, but then you're asking a lot. Maybe Lamar's back because he doesn't look like he's going to play this week. Kansas City's on a roll, but Cincinnati played well last week. I think all 3 feel like toss-ups in some degree to me, which may, if you're a Browns fan, then you're really got to cross your fingers. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but you should know at about 4:15 what Monday night means, because both teams play 1 o'clock, the Ravens and the Bengals. So let's say at 4:15 on Sunday, the Browns would know that if they go into Pittsburgh, there's a chance that if they win, they control their destiny and could set up that final game against Cincinnati, winner take all, which would probably get bumped to Sunday Night Football. So there'll be a huge letdown. Awesome. But there'll be a huge letdown if it doesn't happen, right? If Cincinnati wins and clinches a division, the Browns' wild card chances are minuscule, and they might be gone by then too. So then the whole focus for Monday night shifts, right? And we're talking about Big Ben's finale more. We're talking about a lost season. Can you get to 9-8, right? The conversation changes. So, from a guy that wants the Browns to be interesting. You hope everything goes their way. So week 18 is hyper important.
Now explain to everyone again, if the Bengals beat the Chiefs, is it
over?
The Browns it's over.
Right. Yeah. So actually it's over. It's over for the division. They clinched the division because they would hold the tiebreaker with the Ravens, and the Ravens could only tie them.
Okay, if the Bengals lose and the Ravens win, what happens there?
The Browns would need to win their final two, and Baltimore would need to lose the finale at home versus Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. All right. Before we get to prediction time. Oh, no, you know what? I have two things real quick before we get to prediction time. Actually, I have two things that are not Browns related, and then prediction. But before I do that, anything else you want to hit regarding last week's game or talking about the Steelers again?
No, just Big Ben real quick. Just how, people are going to want to hear this and they already know, but just how dominant he's been. I think it's 24-3-1 as a starter against the Browns, and that includes the playoff loss last year. That's the only game he's lost in Pittsburgh to the Browns. 18 years, Hall of Fame career. It's, watched pretty much all those games, I know I've watched all those games, pretty much all of them in person, seen him develop as a quarterback, seen him switch styles. Remember, it just came back to me this week. Early in his career, he was the kind of guy, he extended plays, and he would shake off an Orpheus Roy or Willie McGinnis and make a big throw to kill the Browns, right? And then as he got older and didn't want to get hit as much and couldn't move as well, he just got rid of the ball super fast, became a much higher completion percentage guy, and was still a top quarterback in the league, still an elite guy. So, it's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does without Ben, right? You're just used to, okay, Ben's in Pittsburgh. It's going to be a new era. Do they draft a guy? Do they go try to get a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers, or, how do they handle that? It's just going to be so different because we're so used to Pittsburgh having an elite quarterback who you knew was going to give them a chance to win in the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. Watching him play over the years, to think the Browns could have drafted him and, saved all this pain that we've suffered. But it was amazing to watch him throughout his career just extend plays, feel the pocket, and just always seem to make it happen. It was incredible how he was able, coming out of Miami in the MAC. So, all right. And from Findlay.
Yep.
So, hometown boy that, somewhat hometown, but I spent a lot of years in Toledo. So I actually covered him in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up, though, before we get to the prediction time, John Madden, what a huge loss for the NFL. And just so many memories with that guy in so many different ways.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I recorded that documentary that, I think it was Fox did. So I was glad that I'd recorded it, because then I watched it the night that he died. And so many good stories and so many good anecdotes. The game's greatest, talking about him, Favre and Brady and Belichick. Just a huge figure in three different ways, right? Great coach. Best winning percentage for a coach in history with 100 games. Broadcaster, maybe the best broadcaster ever. And then the video game, which I'm not a video game guy. And I think, I'm not sure when Madden started. Stefanski said his first was 93. So I don't know if the game started before 93.
I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. I know that I graduated high school in 93, and I played it in high school and then tons of it in college in the mid 90s. But it's funny he says that, because Madden 93 was my favorite one.
Okay.
But I don't hold me to that, but I know it was late 80s, early 90s, whether it was 89, 91. I don't know. It's somewhere in there.
That's interesting, because like I said, I was never a huge video game guy, but at college, some guy back then they had Sega. So like I played some Sega hockey. Like I remember guys down the hall had that, and we would play that. But I think if they had Madden, then I would have played a lot of that. And that's something that I probably would have gotten into and would have stayed into but I never got into it when I was kind of in those formidable years. And just never really have been a huge video game guy. But I know for so many people, that's their connection to John Madden, right? It's through that video game.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, I after college I got away from it, but definitely high school and college years. But you weren't into Tecmo Bowl or Blades of Steel, Double Dribble back in the day?
No, not really. No, I mean we played the Sega hockey. And that's about it. Like it's probably because I was never very good at those games. For whatever reason, I just never got into them. Yeah, it's weird.
And last thing I'm gonna bring up, I am heading to the Fantasy Bowl. We talk about your golf game and my fantasy team, and we talk about your fantasy team as well. But yours, you had a little bit of a down year, right?
Yeah,
I've had a couple down years in a row. So it feels good to get back. But playing for the championship this week, so
that's big, Chad. I know how much you enjoy that. That's huge.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped, no doubt. All right, ready for predictions?
Sure.
So Browns are 7-8. You are 9-6, and I am 10-5 as we head into our 16th prediction here. So I mean, we're pretty close, man, right there.
Yeah. Still to be decided. TBD.
I think you're up first this week.
Yeah, I think I am too. All right. As I laid in bed, not able to sleep, I was trying to come up with the final score. I'm going to go Browns win. I think they're a better team than Pittsburgh. I am concerned at how that bend factor plays out. Maybe if the Browns get off to a good start, maybe just it fizzles out, right? It's just thanks, Ben, and our season's over and your career's over kind of thing. So I'm going to go Browns 24-20. I thought about going higher score, but neither team has proven that they score a bunch of points. So I have a hard time doing that. Although it wouldn't shock me if we saw that kind of game. But I'm going to go 24-20, Browns win. And hopefully that means a lot to talk about next week, Chud, leading into that finale versus the Bengals, because I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no question. And I forgot to mention, we both picked the Packers last week to get to where we're at. You actually were closer in the score. I had them winning by 10, I think, and you had it by 3. You had it closer.
Close game, man. So
yeah, you typically have been pretty good on that with the Vegas lines this year, no doubt. This is a tough one. I think this is one of the more difficult ones of the year. The Big Ben thing. I would say previous Chud would have said there's no way the Browns can beat the Steelers with it being his last home game. Prove to me that you can win a game like this. But here's the thing: they did prove that they can win. Now they didn't do it really. Were there I can't remember. Were there fans in that playoff game? Like small amount,
if there were, there weren't very many.
Yeah. So again, I'm a big stickler on that. I think a full house on the road in the playoffs is a bigger deal than,
Sure.
But still, needless to say, that it's not taking away from it. They still won there. Bottom line is what I'm saying is I can't sit here and say, prove to me you could beat Pittsburgh because they did. So, I think that said, I'm also thinking I don't want to be on the wrong end of this if I pick Pittsburgh and the Browns win. That's the worst feeling in the world.
Well, yeah, I got you. I got you.
And I agree with you. I think the Browns are the better team. I think that this is one where maybe you could change your mind if, the Browns don't have a shot to win the division. That could change the mentality a little bit, maybe.
Yes.
But I'm going to go Browns win as well. And I'm going to go 21-20. So we're right there. And I had that written down before I heard you say yours. We're both pretty close there. It could be something as simple as the Steelers go for 2 and miss it. Or, a missed, I don't know. There's something strange might happen, but you're going to get a 21-20 final.
Okay. All right. We both got Browns wins, and it's the Manning cast on ESPN too. They're going to be talking about the Browns. Yeah.
That's something you probably have to record though and go back and watch, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely will. I'm gonna have somebody, actually one of my coworkers is gonna watch live and write something about it, just because I think it's gonna be that interesting to see what they have to say about Baker.
Well, you'll be going, right?
That's my plan, Judd. But they're actually, all the interviews are gonna be on Zoom, so
okay.
It's not 100% sure, but I'm gonna try to get there if I can. So
okay,
yeah. So, well, Judd, thank you so much for doing this. I know you had a rough week, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. We'll talk next week, regardless of what happens Monday night. Preview the finale, and maybe it'll be a winner take all finale.
Be awesome.
That would be cool. So, thanks everybody for listening to the latest episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. You can read all my work at brownzone.com, sponsored by Fligner's. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next week, and Happy New Year.